Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley and the Rotaract Club of Cupertino. And we are jointly presenting a program today that we're very proud is being given by one of our charter members, the guy that I sat across the table with in a Starbucks saying, how could this work? His name is Mitty Chang. He has done loads of amazing things for Rotaract Worldwide, and he is going to present a program today. And that program is called 3X, or 3 times to Success, an entrepreneur's journey. And I will hand it over to him. Welcome, Mitty, and welcome everyone to, as we record it, World Rotaract Week.
Awesome. Thank you, past, present, Russian. Rotarians, Rotaractors, greetings. Happy World Rotaract Week. It is such a privilege and honor to be here at a joint meeting of the Rotary Club of Silicon Valley and also the Rotaract Club of Cupertino. It is very exciting to be here. For a living, what I do is I tell stories digitally. That is through websites, it's through social media, it's through digital marketing, and that is my career. What I want to share with each of you are a few stories that I've learned through the years, as well as through my involvement in both Rotary as well as Rotaract. This is going to be a celebration of a lot of the lessons I've learned, but really, truly, it is a celebration of the family of Rotary. It's such a privilege to be here in front of you, especially during World Rotaract Week, the week that Rotaract was founded many, many decades ago. Before we get started, I want everyone listening, whether or not you're here on the recording or you are watching the recording, whenever and wherever you are, ask yourself this question. Jot it down or put it as a thought in the back of your head. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I want you to imagine yourself, and I want you to just pocket that thought. Where do you see yourself, your career or your business? Where do you see yourself personally? Where do you see yourself physically? What about your hobbies? What are you into in 5 years? And as you pocket that thought, you keep it somewhere safe. Maybe you wrote it down. Maybe you pause the video, or you're in this recording now and you jotted it away. I want you to hold on to that. We'll come back to it. I want to share with you this story. Now, a few years ago, I found myself sitting in front of this gentleman. This is the king of Uganda's largest tribe. As you can see, I'm only a few feet away from this gentleman. What you can't see is that after nearly 48 hours of travel, my first time to the continent of Africa, that I'm sitting here in front of this gentleman, and surrounding the room are soldiers with machine guns. They brought in this throne just for him. This is a big deal. This is a big procession. This is something where, as you can see from this photo, I am very, very close to where he is seated. And again, not captured are all of his security details and guards. And this is within the first 24 hours of me landing in Uganda. Now, I want to leave you right there. I want you to pause that because I need to rewind in order for you to understand exactly what I was thinking in that moment, where my headspace was and what it meant to me. You need to actually come back in time with me, and I need to share with you essentially my origin story. So if I was a superhero, this would be the story. Now, about 30 years ago, I was made in Taiwan. I was born there. A couple of years shortly after my creation, I moved to California with my parents. I should say my parents moved me to California as I was only 2 years old. And I grew up in the Bay Area. Now, growing up in the Bay Area, I was never the smartest kid. I was never the most athletic. I wasn't the most popular. My family also always straddled the line between poverty and the middle class. Now, we never really had the ability to go on family vacations. We never had gaming consoles. We didn't go on birthday parties or trips, but we always had food at the table. We always had a roof under our heads. And my parents strapped together their savings sometime when I was about in 3rd grade, and they purchased this, our first family computer. Back when Microsoft Windows 95 was the latest, and back when the internet was dial-up internet, American Online is how we connected. And AIM was really the hottest and only messenger out there. That was the start of my journey. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the origin of my life as an entrepreneur. Because shortly afterwards, because I had abundance of time and I didn't have any gaming consoles, by the time I was in 4th grade, I had built my first website. It was a Pokemon website. It was a Pokemon fan club website, and that's why Pikachu is on here, just to be clear. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it led me to realize anything is possible. And that led me to 2 years later, starting my first business. So by the age of 13, I started my first web hosting and web development business. I remember the first customer I had, and I remember selling my first site and thinking, wow, I just made some money. It was a lot of money for a 13-year-old. It was about $200. And I was so ready that I sat down with my parents and I told them, Mom, Dad, I'm ready to move out. I'm ready to be my own man. You can visit me on weekends. I'm going to have a bachelor pad with an arcade system. I'm going to buy everything that you have told me I can't get. And this conversation happened, but quickly we had this conversation about the cost of living, rent. Food does not magically appear on the table that actually costs money. The cost of the games and the cost of everything else I wanted. So that was perhaps a dream that kind of got put on the back burner, but the important part is this lesson. The first of 3 lessons I'd like to share with you. Lesson number 1, dream it and then just do it. Now, over the years, I've refined this to also mean dream it and then find the quickest way to go prototype your ideas. But the key here is, if there's something you want to go do, anything is possible. Find the quickest way that you can go out there and try out your idea. Because at the end of the day, you won't know whether or not your idea is a good one, a bad one, whether or not it will be successful or unsuccessful until you try it. And trying it could look like anything. Maybe you have an idea to start the next big mobile app, but maybe you don't have the resources right now to design and develop it. Now, think to yourself, is there another way you can get to an experiment stage without coding it? What if you just did everything on paper? What if you, instead of having an interactive mobile app, you had a phone number you could text, and you had someone on the other side responding instead of a artificial intelligence? What's the quickest way you can get to a prototype and make your dreams a reality? The more ideas you collect and the more experiments you run, the more data you can get and the more knowledge you can learn. Now, growing up in an Asian American household, I also had the wonderful experience, and not so wonderful at the time, but the experience of trying out a lot of interesting food choices. And growing up, this meant everything from just chicken feet to intestines of different animals, to also crab and brains, as well as fish brains, to a few other things as well. So my mom always had this phrase: try everything 3 times. So Mama Chang would be there And I would, as my younger 12-year-old, 13-year-old self would always look at that food and ask, what is that? And she would sometimes tell me, and sometimes she would not tell me, and then sometimes she would lie to me. But that's just how Mama Chang is. And she always told me, try everything 3 times. And I would try it and quickly come to my own conclusions about whether or not something was tasty or not. But at the end of the day, she always told me, you need to keep trying it. You need to try it 3 times, because once you need to do it just to get over the fear of doing it. And the second time you need to learn how to do it. And the third time you need to figure out if you like it or not. And she would lose track of how many times I had tried crab brains and all these other things, but it didn't matter to her. She basically told me, don't waste the food, but go try everything 3 times. Now, this brings me to our second lesson. Mama Chang taught me that you need to try everything 3 times. In life, whether or not you're talking about business or you're talking about Rotaract or Rotary or anything else you're involved with, there's going to be chances where you will fail the first time. There will be plenty of those. There will be times when you try something for the first time and maybe you don't like it. Or maybe you try it and you do like it. The idea is try everything 3 times before you decide to give it up. Figure out if you really do like it or not. And if a new idea that you launch for your club or a new business idea you launch doesn't go successful after the first pilot of it, the first experiment, try it again. The more times you try, the better you get at it. Now, because this is also a journey of my experience in the Rotary family, I do want to share with you a little bit about how I entered into the family of Rotary. Now, that was as an interactor. And what's amazing and what I'm grateful for is being able to enter into Interact in District 5170, the district we're currently here in the Bay Area. What you see is a video of what the Interact district conferences used to look like. We used to have around 3,000 to 4,000 interactors in a high school gymnasium on a Sunday. And this is the energy, this is the vibe of what I walked into for Interact. And just like what it may be for many of you, at the end of the day, it was really someone just asking me if I want to go to a meeting, asking me if I want to go to a service project, if I want to help people. And it's something that I really found impactful. It was my first time doing service with community services, my first time holding a leadership position. Interact taught me the value of friendship, but also taught me the value of feeling like you belong. And it's because of Interact I actually went on to Rotaract. So at my university, University of California, Davis, I started the Rotaract Club there to continue my Interact experience and my Rotary experience. And it was because of Rotaract there that many opportunities opened up to me. And it was around when I graduated UC Davis that I was thinking about, what am I going to do? What am I going to do after graduation? So I was sitting as a graduating senior only a few months before graduation, and I made this list. Of course, after I also came up with some goals, which I'm going to come back to this and talk a little bit about smarter goals, but I want to share with you this list first. So I scribbled this list down on just a notepad I had. I marked down on the left, and that's the year I graduated, but where I was, my highlights for what I thought was my life at that time, and also where I wanted to be in 5 years. Now, I asked you at the beginning, where do you want to be in 5 years? That's a question I asked myself when I was a graduating senior. I asked myself, where do I see myself in 5 years? Where do I want to be? At that time, I had only been to 2 countries. I actually didn't know what my career path was going to be. I had some inklings, but I hadn't decided. I was applying for jobs. I wasn't planning on starting my own business. I was working multiple jobs at the university throughout my time as a student there. And At that time, I had a college budget and had only met other college students. But in 5 years, I knew I wanted to travel more. I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to be able to work from anywhere. I wanted to meet incredible people, celebrities, leaders, innovators. I wanted to be able to eat out when and where I wanted to without thinking about it. And it's thanks to Rotary and thanks to being part of Rotaract that I found myself in so many opportunities where doors were open for me. You know, I made that list in, you know, I'll come back and again talk about setting goals, but because of this organization you are now part of, you instantly are part of a global family of 1.2 million members who have a lot of trust and faith in you just because you're a member. Now, the more you give to the organization, the more time you spend, the more service projects you do, the more leadership roles you hold, the more you show up, the more grateful the organization is. And I found that by just showing up, by just stepping up and giving more of my time, I've been able to achieve some of those goals. And can tell you without a doubt, because it's, you know, past that 5-year mark that I originally hit, I've been able to travel to over 30 countries thanks to the doors Rotary has opened. And you'll see, you know, some of these are from my travels. I've been able to meet some incredible leaders, including some thought leaders like Jane Goodall. I've been able to connect with what are now some of my closest friends from around the world, my tribe, and really feel a sense of belonging. You know, whether or not you're going to university in a city or a state that is not your home, or whether or not you're just looking for a larger tribe, a family to call your own, of like-minded people who share your values. That's what Rotaract is. That's what Rotary is. That's what this family is. And it's because of these opportunities that, you know, I've been able to connect with so many leaders and found so many synergies between my projects and my business, as well as my passion. And so we come back to this list where in 2010, you know, I hadn't been to more than 2 countries. I actually, in this list, it's funny because I include my birth country, Taiwan, in this list, and I included Canada in this list too. So, you know, it's almost as if I only had been to 1 country at that point. But where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know, 5 years later, this is what the list evolved into. Earlier, I shared with you smarter goals. Some of you may have heard of SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-specific goals, SMART goals. You can Google that. What some of you may not be aware of are smarter goals. So the idea that there's an E and an R, evaluate your goals and constantly revise them. This was something that I didn't really learn until my last year in college, and it was through a leadership development course. But the idea really simply is this: you know, your goals are not set in stone, but imagine yourself 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into the future, and ask yourself in kind of these different columns, where do you see yourself? And that's where we come to our third lesson: smarter goals. Regularly evaluate and revise your goals. Your goals can always change. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? That thought you gave, and ask yourself, where do you see yourself when you're 65 years old? Where do you see yourself when you're 80 years old? Where do you see yourself when you're 100 years old? And then work backwards. Because if you see yourself when you're 100 years old as someone who has impacted tens of thousands of people, or is a renowned book author, or has worked for the United Nations, you can go backwards in time and figure out from 10 or 15-year milestone points, where do you have to be at certain points in your life in order to get to the end destination. And you should revise every year, and you can keep updating because goals change. I want to come back to the story. The story a few years ago of myself in Uganda in front of the king of the largest tribe of Uganda. And I'm zooming back to this photo because in the original photo, I clipped out the fact that this was a Rotary conference. This was a Rotary district conference I was invited to speak at, and it was a conference of about 1,200 Rotarians. It was an incredible conference. It went on for about 4 days. It was longer than our normal conferences here. And I say this because they also partied every single night until like past midnight. So it was a fun conference that had its own private surprise concert, which was exciting. And this is actually one of their own Billboard top 10 stars. And it also came with other doors that opened. And that included some side travel trips afterwards. And that's really because of one thing. I at the time was both a Rotaractor and a Rotarian, but because I'm part of this family of Rotary, 1.2 million members, suddenly all these doors are open. Suddenly there's trust. Even though for these Rotarians, it was their first time really meeting me. So I was able to travel around the country and get an opportunity to get a tour, including to the chimpanzee sanctuary, which was just a really cool experience. An experience that I think normally I wouldn't have been able to get to. It was a private boat that one of the past district governors owned, and it was just an incredible experience. Now, I mention all this because I want to come back to this moment in time. Understanding my origin story and understanding that when I was growing up, my parents always had to decide whether or not to have one of my siblings go on a field trip or if it was my turn. They had to decide on, whether or not to buy books or whether or not, we could send one of us to a friend's birthday party. And, because we never really traveled, it was always something growing up I wanted to do. And so I found myself in this moment in time thinking, what the heck am I doing here? Those were the language might have been a little bit more profane, but those were the exact line that I was really thinking at the time. I was asking myself, what am I doing here? I'm sitting just a few feet from the king of the largest tribe in Uganda, been on this continent, let alone the country, for less than 24 hours. There are armed guards with machine guns everywhere. And here I am, just ready to give a speech eventually. Funny thing is, I was actually bumped further down the line from the schedule because the king showed up, understandably. And here I thought, I'm so grateful to be part of the Rotary family. This was just it was one of everything you see here. It's one of those moments where Rotary opens doors. I had this slide up at the beginning because, one specific part, there's a blank here. It's not a style piece. It's not a design piece. It's meant to be a fill in the blank. Rotary opens doors, but also individuals open doors. It's because Rotarians believed in me, including that district governor at that particular time in Uganda who invited me to speak. People believe in each other, and it's because we're in the same tribe that people are willing to open doors for you. It's an incredible opportunity, and it's an opportunity to nurture skills that you normally may not use in everyday life. It's something that it will come back to you, and as you continue to inspire and innovate, whether or not that's in your professional life or in your personal life, everything synergizes together. And so with that, I want to remind everyone of the 3 lessons. Dream it and then just do it. Find the quickest way to prototype your ideas. Try everything 3 times. And smarter goals. Evaluate, revise. Remember, goals are flexible and they're meant to be changed. with that, I want to thank everyone for listening. Russian, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Wonderful, Mitty. Thank you so much for the talk. And I am excited for us to be able to pick your brain a little as we go as well. Our first question is coming from Alan of the Rotaract Club of Cupertino. How did Candever come to be? Was it something you had in mind for a while, or did it evolve differently?
Yeah, great question. So Candever was founded in 2015, and our origin story actually has Rotary ties to it. So my original business partner and co-founder of the agency, which is a digital agency, we build websites and run digital marketing operations for other customers and businesses. We actually met in Sydney in 2014 at International RILA. So RILA is a Rotary Youth Leadership Awards camp that Rotary runs. And it was in the lobby of International RILA in Sydney, Australia. Halfway around the world, we decided, it would be great to continue a business operation. Eventually, Candever was born. And it was born after several meetings and also just a continuation of wanting to innovate and work together.
Very nice. And when you think about your experience as a Rotaractor, there have to have been moments within Rotaract that you got this sense that you could take your ideas to a next level. Is there an experience in your own Rotaract journey where that really came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually my first Rotary International Convention, I was 18 or 19 at the time. It was my first year in Rotaract, actually. I've been through Interact, remember, and then also RILA. So I wasn't new to the Rotary family, my first year in Rotaract. I was in Salt Lake City for this convention because every year it changes locations. Next year it's going to be in Texas. This year is supposed to be in Taiwan, but because of the pandemic, it's virtual now. So that year was Salt Lake City, Utah. And I remember being in the general plenary session, the first one, about 17,000 Rotary members and Rotaractors and Interactors. So a lot of people, it's like a full stadium. And I just remember there's this Rotary song on the giant screen, and when the lyrics were there and we all sang to it, all 17,000 of us, and talking about like, this was cult level song. Like it was, it's one of those, like we all sang and we sang Rotary and we're like thinking, oh my God, I joined a cult. And it was just one of those moments where I felt like I belonged. So I don't know if that sounds kind of crazy, but at that moment, I realized it sounded like a cult song, but at the same time, I was okay with it. I was not only okay with it, I accepted it, I embraced it because I felt like I belonged. And it was at that convention that, as we're singing about service above self, like literally singing about how we could do community service together and have fellowship. I connected with some of my first international friends from around the world. And by the end of that convention, I had friends on definitely every continent other than Antarctica. But just, it was amazing. It was incredible to see how far-reaching the Rotary family is and what opportunities are open to you just because you're a Rotaractor.
Great. Mitty, I have a question. Well, first off, a comment. Thank you very much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. And your childhood really resonates with me because I had a very similar one, down to the Pokemon as well. That was also my childhood. But interestingly, so you went like the computer route, and again, very similar. We also, someone gave us a computer. But instead of going down like, let's do coding, I did, let's learn Japanese. So that was my path. But my question / comment is for you is in one of your slides when you're showing your smarter goals and your path, right? Your goals for your future. I could have sworn that I saw something that said Rotary in space. Is that correct? Did I read it wrong?
You have me now questioning the list. I am going to just double check it. First of all, Thank you for your wonderful comments. And yes, there are some amazing similarities. I'm just like also looking at this. So no, there's no Rotary in space. Oh no, yes, there is. Ha ha ha. Let me actually share this. This is funny. So again, you have to understand I was much younger too. This was done probably in 2015. But so I mapped out every 5 years for the next 20 years at that point. And I started at the bottom. So I started with year 2034, and I wanted to work backwards based off of aspirational goals, right? And since then, I have expanded what can also be called like a retrospective analysis or goal setting session. But I've expanded this to really start when I'm age 80 instead. And then I work back 20 years at a time. And then eventually, once we get closer, I work back 5 years at a time. But at that time, I started at the bottom one, and I thought, what would be a great stretch goal for me to achieve in 20 years? And at that time, as well as now, these are the main buckets of my life, like what's important to me, right? So career and business, I think a lot of people share. Personal/family, a lot of people share. Not everyone's going to share Rotary. That's fine. If Rotary is a big part of your life, you might have a column for it, right? If Japanese is a big part of your life, you might have a column for that. Or if Pokemon's a big part of your life, maybe you have a column for that. Maybe becoming a Pokemon master is at the very end. I don't know, right? Also extras and certification. So I've done a lot of also personality tests, and for who I am, I'm always I'm a maximizer. So, and I basically want to constantly improve myself and also what I'm involved with. So I have my own column just for that purpose. And so, yes, I actually put down here in the Rotary column, in 20 years, it'd be really cool to co-found a Rotary Club in space. Does not mean I would live in space. It just meant, especially because at that time we had chartered this eClub, I was thinking, wow, it'd be really cool if I somehow was involved in co-founding this Rotary Club that was in space. So yes, to answer your question, you did see that. And actually, it's funny because I forgot about that.
All right. So for our recording, let's have one more question from one of the team from the Rotaract Club of Cupertino. That would be Vincent Chen. So Vincent, if you would unmute and chime in.
Thank you, Rushton. So my question is, how did the Rotary community impacted your career path? In other words, what specific examples did the community made in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, so it's different for everyone, and everyone has their own path. So what has happened for me may not necessarily be the path you go on. I just want to preface with that. But for me personally, it's been soft skills that Rotary has really taught me. And I think this is actually really important to emphasize because you're not often taught soft skills at every university. It is something you sometimes pick up through extracurriculars or your involvement. And when I say soft skills, I mean public speaking, communicating with colleagues, conflict resolution, problem solving, and just management in general. Also leadership skills. Like all of these are soft skills that, yes, you could go out and seek a course for, or a retreat for, or a program for, but typically in most educational systems, it's not a mandatory course you end up taking, right? So that's really what Rotary has given me. And I would say that because of my position. So having been a past club president for 2 Rotaract clubs, a Rotary club, and then also going on to co-found several Rotary entities and Rotaract entities within the organization, both at the district and regional zone levels and international levels. It's just given me more and more opportunities to speak, host meetings, run efficient meetings, communicate, conflict resolution a lot, and just all of these soft skills that, it makes you a better business leader, it makes you a better leader, but it also makes you a way better colleague. Like at the end of the day, if you can problem solve and you can think outside of the box and you can resolve conflicts on your own, it makes you more hireable. It makes you more desirable from a professional standpoint. And it is something that I've encountered, you know, is sometimes not as common as you would expect when you're trying to hire for people. You know, we hire almost, part of what we do is we also help some of our clients hire. So we're constantly assisting with hiring rounds like every month. And I can tell you without a doubt that problem solving is something we always look for in the interview process. And we try to understand how strong their soft skills are, because at the end of the day, you can have like really strong hard skills like programming knowledge. And you can also have really strong like a resume and background. But if you can't figure out how to solve a problem on your own and work that out and also work with the team, it's pretty hard to, you know, have you work with the team and be hireable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great message for Rotaractors, for Interactors, and for Rotarians, I'd say. And so for all of you in the Rotary end of that spectrum who are visiting the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley, we ask that you let us know that you are here and add a comment at the bottom of our page. And our thanks go not just to our speaker, Mitty, awesome, as always, but also to all of the cool folks from the Rotaract Club of Cupertino. I hope this is the first of lots of cool things that we get a chance to do together, because one of the best things about being in Rotary and the larger Rotary universe is that you just keep running across cool people, and that is a good way to live one's life. As we always like to do, we will hand it back in just a moment to our speaker for a final word before we end the recording. Although all of you who are with us at the moment, stick around and we'll just keep talking to Mitty as long as he's willing to listen to us. So with that, Mitty, if you would give us our final word.
Thank you, Russian. I want to thank everyone for this opportunity to share a few stories with each of you. It's so great to chat with both the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley and also the Rotaract Club of Cupertino. Happy World Rotaract Week. And I hope you will remember to try everything at least 3 times. Thank you.